I recently found out about these little glass plant pots, little glass vases for aquariums, and I've seen various people on Instagram using them, and they're really quite nice. So I looked on eBay, and they're a couple of quid each. And it's just a little glass vase with a hole in the bottom and two suckers that you attach onto the back. Now, there's loads of different ways you can use these. You can, do what you like with them. I think I've seen one instance where the pot was in about the middle of the aquarium, and it had like a plant growing out of it and then hanging down in the water, which looked quite nice. But what I'm going to use it for is to help grow plants emergent or immersive out of the water, basically. So I've got these really nice echinodorus plants, and basically they're a bit like Amazon swords, where they've got a very big root structure. But what happens is they've got leaves on them like a normal plant, obviously. And if you grow them out of water, though, the leaves die off and different leaves start to grow, emergent leaves. So there's two different types of leaves. So what I did over the summer was put these in, I put them in the plant pot with dirt and submerged it in water, just the base of the roots, and the leaves dried out and died, and I left it, and then new leaves started growing, which were different in shape. They grow a lot taller and they're a lot narrower. And these leaves are actually emergent leaves, ones that grow out of the water. So as it's getting a bit colder now, I've brought them in, and I'm going to try and grow them in an aquarium. But obviously if I put the bases of the plants in the water, then the emergent leaves might die off because they'll be completely submerged. So just to hire them, I'm putting them in these little glass plant pots, just so the roots are in the water but the leaves aren't, so they'll grow immersive. So I'm going to use the same substrate that I've got in the tank already, just so they match. I'm going to put a little bit in the bottom, just so the roots aren't totally exposed at the bottom. And then I'm going to put the plants in and cover the rest of the roots up with the substrate. As you can see here. But what I'm also going to add is some of these root tabs. They're just fertilizer in little tablets that slowly dissolve and feed the roots of the plants. They're only cheap ones, so I'm going overkill and adding 2 to each pot. Normally you'd only need 1 for a couple of plants, but I've got quite a few of them and they're only cheap ones, so I'm throwing 2 in here, see what happens. You can see them in there. I'm just going to fill the rest of the pot up with more substrate. So I think this looks really nice. Just the way it's like a little mini pot with the substrate and the plant growing out. It's a really nice decoration. Won't really see much of it in this tank because it's black water. But the purpose of this isn't so that it looks nice, it's just so the leaves are growing out of the water. So the first one's done. Just going to move on to the second one now. So these plants here, the Echinodorus, come in loads of different varieties, and some of them grow absolutely massive. If you look at some pictures of aquariums where there's big plants growing out of the top from the substrate, a lot of the time it will be this Echinodorus plant. And there's loads of different species, and I'm pretty sure this species that I have, I'll leave the actual name in the description because I won't be able to pronounce it properly. But this species is meant to grow massive. I did some research on it, so I'm hoping that putting them in these little pots really give them a boost, and once they get quite tall, I'm going to actually try and bury them in the substrate with the leaves sticking out the top, and then hopefully from there they'll just get even bigger. That's the plan. This is a little bag of root tabs that I've got. It's just little balls of fertilizer in these little tabs that eventually dissolve into the substrate, and they just make the substrate nutrient rich for plants to grow. So I've added some more substrate in the bottom here, and a little root tab, well, 2 root tabs, and then I'm just going to top it all off with more of the same substrate, just covering the roots up to the top. Don't really want to cover too much of the stem. So here's the final product, the 2 plants in the little glass pots. They're really pretty. You can do a lot with these. All sorts of different plants. Ones that creep out of the pot and down towards the substrate and things like that. Or maybe have some dwarf hair grass or something like that. Just zoom out here so you can see the full length of these plants. So the plants were drastically different when I bought them. They were like Amazon swords, but now you can see the large stems with the leaves on the top. So you can see how they're more of an emergent or immersive plant with these new leaves. I'm going to put them into the water now, and I'll show you where about in the water level I'm going to have them. So there's a lot of floating plants in here, a lot of dwarf water lettuce, which is doing very well. I'm going to put 1 plant on one side and 1 on the other, right under the light, but be sure that the light doesn't get too close to the leaves because they will just turn a funny colour. So you can see that the stems and the roots, the base of the stems and the roots are under the water, but none of the leaves are. So eventually more leaves will grow, but they'll grow straight out of the water, and the plant will produce more emergent leaves because of this. Showing you the neons here chasing each other. They're doing really well. So yeah, the vases might look a little bit better in more of a typical aquarium setup, but in this black water tank you can't really see much of the vases, but it's not an issue. They still look really nice. The plants look nice growing out of the top. I think it's a really good idea, and the vases are really cheap as well. Like I said, I got them off eBay, really cheap. It's just a bit of an experiment really. It looks really good. Be interesting to see what happens to these plants in the future, see how big they actually do get. But they're already doing quite well, so I'm happy with that. Yeah, that's the end of the video then. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to see more things that I do, with this tank and my new tank that I'll be getting shortly, then subscribe, and thank you for watching.